Yes, okay, there we go. Just wanted to make sure because I have done that quite often recently with my other Zoom events. So, okay, we can go to slide 3. We wanted to take a moment to introduce you to the rest of our team members for the Putnam County Mural Project, as Chris and I are just 1/3 of the team of 6 individuals who came together to really make this project gain some footing and momentum throughout the county. So here we have a picture of us at our block party for the final reveal of our silo murals. We can see in this picture, starting from the left, your left, is JD Grove. Chris is behind JD. Next is Kate Nall, then myself. Then we have the artist and his wife and their son, Max. So we used Key Detail, or Andre Krautzu, and his wife, Julia. And then on the far right are 2 of our other team members, Eric Freeman and Kristen Foose Wells. So what are you going to get out of today's session? Well, we intend for today's discussion with you all to be a conversation of not only how this project happened here in Putnam County, but more so how you can make something similar happen in your community. After working through our project, we have identified 3 overarching themes that contributed to the success of our project and made it extremely meaningful to our community. Number 1 would be in understanding the importance of planning and process that goes into any community arts project. Having an emphasis on best practices in terms of planning and process allowed for the creation of a top-notch product, our mural and our block party. We have come to recognize that you can still be grassroots, but be very professional in your efforts. And understanding the importance of planning and process goes a long way towards those efforts, especially in terms of building buy-in from different facets of your community. Which leads me to our second point, of seeing how collective impact is crucial to making your story more meaningful. We realized that by emphasizing our stakeholders continually throughout this process, we allowed for them to continue feeling included throughout our community arts project. And lastly, we recognized that we would have never been as successful as we were if we didn't maintain a connection to exhibiting best practices in terms of our community engagement efforts throughout the entirety of the project, including consistently thinking through barriers that existed along the way and actively working towards breaking those down as best as possible for the continued inclusion of everyone in our community.
So in 2019, our team set out to install a mural on the silos that you see pictured here. These silos are located in Greencastle, Indiana, which is about 45 minutes west of Indianapolis. We're a rural community with a countywide population of 37,000 people. And the silos you see here, they stand 50 feet tall, and the total canvas size is 8,000 square feet. And so, as you see, they're in pretty rough shape. They were definitely an eyesore, but after months of planning and really under 2 weeks of installation, this is the result. And so I want to talk to you about why we chose this location. And the answer to that question is a really important piece of our project. So over the years, Greencastle's downtown has been fortunate to see a lot of economic investment and growth. And so this growth dates back to us being one of the original Stellar Communities grant recipients. And then there's also a lot of development that's driven by DePaul University, which is also in town. And so, there's plenty of wonderful walls we could have painted in our downtown district, but we chose this site because it was an area of the community that is more residential. And there's a lot more diversity in income levels in this part of town. It's in proximity to a business district that sees some churn, some turnover. And it's also positioned within 3 park systems, all within walking distance. And it just so happens that across the street, so where myself and the artists are looking at the camera, that's the future site of People's Pathways, which is it's going to connect a trail system that allows people to bike, run, and walk. And so we really thought this location was a great, for many different reasons, a great place to activate in our community, and really kind of show love in other parts of the town. So, and they also serve as the south, kind of the gateway entrance when you're coming up Route 231 from Bloomington. This is kind of the first thing you see as you enter into the town. And then here's our amazing muralist, Andre Krautzo. He goes by the artist name Key Detail. He's a New York-based artist who immigrated to the United States from Belarus. And we selected Andre from a pool of over 70 applicants from around the world. And we'll detail our selection process further in the presentation. But his selection was based off an intense amount of community input, which I really think made our project unique and meaningful to the entire community. So right now, I was going to show you this really nice 2-minute promo video with all this awesome drone footage, but you know, Murphy's Law, it wasn't working with my internet connection here. So I took out the slide. And so if you want to go see some really, really neat imagery that we captured during this installation process, you can go to our website. Alexandra is going to put that in the chat. It's putnamcountymuralproject.org. It's not a marketing ploy to get you to go there. We really just wish we could have showed it to you now. But here's the another angle of the mural once it was completed. And so, but we really want to emphasize that this project is more than the beautiful work of art that was installed on these silos. And that it's really a story about the amazing opportunities that are available when the public is used to when public art is used to bring people together and to inspire and to spark dialogue about what it means to be a community. So as we share our story with you today, we'll be highlighting 3 important components of our project that will help you to see the process that we took and hopefully provide some new ideas or ways of looking at your own community arts work. And so our first emphasis is really on the planning process. And while that seems obvious to many of you, I've seen a lot of nonprofits or projects take a real casual approach to this, and they seem to really just jump into the work. And so I think when we take more time in this stage of a project, we definitely have the opportunity to increase the impact of our work. And so for us, this step was really, really important in helping us achieve the goals and to live out our mission. And so the first step of the process, is a mission statement. And so our work began with multiple community conversations. So once we narrowed in the focus of what we were going to do, so a mural on these silos, we found it very helpful to create such a mission statement. So when creating a mission statement, obviously be clear and concise. The statement should define what you do. It should use some inspiring language. And we certainly felt like it helped us in our work. It helped keep us focused, and it eventually inspired the donors who, once it came time to ask for support, the language and the framing was already there. So, and again, I know a lot of us know what mission statements are. A lot of us are, either work or are involved with an arts organization that most likely has a mission statement. But I think even for that grassroots, one-off project, I think, whether you call it a mission statement or statement of purpose or whatever, having a clearly defined, 3-4 sentence statement is going to be really helpful in the work as you move on through your project. And so our mission at the Putnam County Mural Project is to enrich lives in Putnam County by engaging the community in participatory mural projects that activate space, build artistic capacity, and celebrate who we are. So all of the work that came after, this was decided on by our 6-member committee was really focused around this. And as you'll see through our story, we really tried to actively play this mission out in our community. So the next step, again, kind of an obvious thing, but a project timeline. And so, our project timeline was really important in helping us make this project happen, obviously. But it really started with educating ourselves on murals. And actually it might be surprising, but a lot of our committee members had never done a mural project before. We had other involvement in the arts, but not specifically a mural project. So it was important for us to educate ourselves, to learn more from other organizations on the process, and then really start with brainstorming and mapping out all of the details that were involved in a mural project. And so starting with that brainstorming is really important. And for us and for, a general mural project, that involves things like, community engagement. So how you're going to engage the community, where you're going to be, how they're going to participate, in our example, in the selection process, fundraising campaigns, how are you going to engage and thank donors, selection processes like the request for qualifications or proposals, artist contracts, easement agreements with the landowners so that you have permission to be on the property and so that you protect the work for a set amount of time after the project's complete. That's really important. Live rentals, wall prep, liability insurance during the installation, and also when your volunteers or your team members are accessing the site, volunteer coordination, marketing, communications, and the list goes on and on. So brainstorming is mapping that out and really getting a sense of the depth and scale of your project is a important first step of that project timeline. And then identifying major deadlines and milestones, and then putting action steps in there and delegating duties. So our 6-person team, we each had defined roles that really helped us work well together. And so I want to kind of illustrate this in a simplified version of our timeline. So like I said, starting with, an idea. So our idea happened in January of 2019. And our deadline, we wanted this whole project to wrap up for many different reasons by September of the same year. So after this date was set, we continued planning, and by March, we actually had our project launch. And this is where we began to tell our community what we plan to do and how we would need their help. And so as you can see here, it was the beginning of our community engagement work there in the red. And that was also, very heavily involved with the selection process, as we'll detail a little further. So after the launch, and actually I should say that our launch included an event, and it was a guest speaker from a mural festival on the East Coast, and talking about public art and community and narrative and story. So very, very much like what we're talking about at this conference. We started with an event, and that really framed what we were doing in the community. So the time we launched our campaign in June, we had a 30-day campaign. And by the time we launched that campaign, donors were already seeing us actively work out our mission in the community. And they were already starting to see that, okay, it's not just beautification, but it's actually about inspiration. It's about bringing pride and involving, everybody in the community to be a part of this process. And so after those funds were raised, our campaign was the total project cost was $60,000, and we had a matching grant. We raised $30,000 in 30 days and got the match. And once we had that funding, then obviously we could engage the artist. And again, we selected based on community input. We hired a third-party contractor to do the wall prep. And then the design was selected, supplies ordered in August, and then for 2 weeks in September, our mural was installed. But I want to go a little further with the project timeline and talk about how to look at, it's really helpful to map it out and to see everything and have that as part of your planning process. But I think the narrative, searching for that story, that overarching story in your project timeline, can be very helpful for whatever you're doing. And so this is where the marketing and communications member of your volunteer committee or of your organization should be very involved in looking at this. And so for us, like I said, our mission that we talked about a couple slides ago, we wanted to make sure that we were making that evident in every single phase of our project. And of course, when you start to do that and you're having it like every month, then your press releases are, consistent in the language and staying to your mission, but there's also something new and engaging. So finding a narrative in your project, finding your story in your project timeline helped us.
I almost started speaking with mute on, of course. Isn't that what happens to all of us in Zoom now? So let's get down to some of the nitty-gritty details here. So developing a budget. Where do you even start? Sometimes this is one of the scariest parts of a project like this. And as Chris mentioned, overall, we put together, this was a $60,000 project for our community. We raised 30 grand. We had a matching grant to match the other 30 grand. And overall, it was 60. That's a lot of money. How did we do that? In simplest terms, we outlined our revenue streams. We thought through in our brainstorming sessions all of our expenses and potential expenses. And we decided on using a fiscal sponsor as opposed to starting our own nonprofit. So for anyone out there who may not know, a fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit organization that offers their legal and tax exempt status to groups, typically projects similar to the one like we're talking about here. Engaged in activities related to the sponsoring organization's mission. So don't get nervous here. Setting up a whole nonprofit can be really, really scary. That's why we encourage, whenever you have projects in mind like this, to work with an already established nonprofit in your area who shares very similar visions to your project, in which you two can partner with one another. For our project, we partnered with the Greencastle Civic League. They had done a few smaller murals in the past in our community, and their mission directly emphasizes beautifying and engaging spaces within Putnam County, which was exactly what we were looking to do with Putnam County Mural Project. So next steps, how are you going to use your story, the story that we've been trying to carry through this whole timeline, to generate funds to make your project happen? For Putnam County Mural Project, we were very focused on a diversification of revenue streams, recognizing that if we want to do a community-based project, we need community-based buy-in, not just with good words and volunteers throughout the process, but with funding. We can't raise $60,000 from the community if our community is not wanting to be a part of this program. This just means we didn't rely on one group or person. We utilized our resources in our community. We reached out for local, individual, and group donors, small businesses, area corporations, affinity groups, and we continually engaged with these donors throughout the entire process. We didn't just take their money and move on to the next. That allowed for us to build some buy-in, and for those individuals and groups and organizations who are giving to this campaign to take on some ownership from all of these stakeholders to take place, and thus a greater emphasis on the community part of our community engagement project. Here, don't reinvent the wheel. People have done projects like this before. I already saw somebody in the chat who mentioned that they're wanting to do a similar project like this in their community. Reach out to us, reach out to other individuals and groups who have done this kind of work before. They want to help, we want to help. And it's really helpful to get their insight as to what they had to raise money for and how they actually raised the money. Don't just make up the numbers. Educate yourself about your market and your region and what it is exactly that you're needing to provide funds for here. Look for grants that are already outlining the type of project you are looking to accomplish. Half the battle in grant writing, as I'm sure most of us know, is convincing the reviewers that your project aligns with their values. So find a grant that instead aligns with your values as a project and as a group. Consider crowdsourced funding campaigns. After all, you have a community-based project in mind. Why not include your community in the funding of it? Really gaining feedback along the way of what your community is wanting out of this, and simultaneously creating community-based buy-in and ownership from your community members for their project. So a little bit about the granting structure we went with. We utilized the Creating Places granting program. Creating Places is a matching grant program that's a collaborative effort between the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority and Patronicity, a crowdfunding online platform. As a place-based crowd granting program, Creating Places empowers the public, residents, businesses, and community organizations to play a pivotal role in achieving community improvements and building community pride. That's exactly what we were looking for to do with this project. And that's why we thought it'd be really great to work with them. And thankfully, we were able to do so. So now that you've got the money, yay, what do you spend it on? Again, don't reinvent the wheel here. Too many times we're trying, especially as arts administrators and as small groups, we're trying to come up with everything on our own. People have done work like this in the past. Reach out to them. They want to help. We're a pretty collaborative community at the end of the day. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Talking to somebody who's done this before you can really emphasize some of the things that you may not be thinking about in terms of what you're going to need to spend money on, like having to hire someone to tear down a fence, or, oh yeah, there are electrical wires right in the way of where our lift and our artists need to be in order to reach that top part of the silo and put paint on it. We're going to have to call the electric company and have them come out and fix that for us. Talking with someone else will also help you think of some of the more practical things that you might need along the way. So we all know that we need paint and materials to create a mural, obviously. And of course, money to pay our hardworking artists. And I see the question from Kayla about how did we determine what to pay. So we'll talk about that at the end. But you may not be thinking off the bat that perhaps you need to provide housing and food for your artists while they're on site. That insurance is needed throughout multiple facets of your project. That wall prep could cost almost as much as the painting itself. That lifts and ladders are needed so you can reach those tippy top sections of your canvas. That you do sometimes need to spend some funds on marketing and fundraising items for donor gifts. Yes, people generally want to help and give in-kind donations, especially for donor gift items. And area businesses that can offer their services instead of cash to your project can be great. But be prepared at the outset to adjust where you need to in order to accommodate any last minute hiccups, because we definitely experienced a few and we were able to pivot pretty easily, which I'm thankful for. This is where your brainstorming process at the beginning of your project comes in handy, utilizing that as a time to really understand the needs of your project throughout all stages and across all platforms. Quick side note here, make sure you put someone on your team directly in charge of the budget and that no money is spent without express permission by that person. This helps to control and monitor the budget and spending. Money you're spending in projects like this is typically crowdfunded and or community sourced. And therefore you have an ethical obligation to your community, to your constituents, to everybody involved to take care of it properly and to be able to showcase to your community how you actually spent those funds. Okay, so now that we have a general understanding of some of our processes and procedures for our community arts project, let's shift to our second point of seeing how implementing those strategies allows for a focus on collective impact and making your story more meaningful. So collective impact, and this must be an old version of the PowerPoint, but that's okay.
No, sorry.
That's okay. What is collective impact? Essentially, it's a group of stakeholders coming together from different areas, all working in line with one another towards a common goal. Doing this right can help in all facets of your project, primarily by way of providing continual engagement from your community throughout your process. The trick is finding the right stakeholders who all can be paired together well. So some things to focus on in the development of this. Don't just pull on the people you already know and you're already working with. Think outside the box and towards others in your community who may have similar missions and goals in mind with their organizations. That brings me to my next point of a focus on common goals across sectors. Shared outcomes across community sectors can be a really powerful tool in your box to pinpoint other organizations that may be a good team member for you. Next, you want to emphasize mutually reinforcing activities. So again, in thinking of this collective impact mentality throughout your community, what other people, what other organizations in your area are wanting to do similar things, but with a slightly different slant or with other resources in mind that they can bring to the table. And finally, you want to have a main organization driving momentum forward and providing backbone support. For us, that was our team at Putnam County Mural Project. We were the ones going out and finding all these other organizations and people who we thought we could bring onto our team to really build up and support what we were wanting to do, because we knew that they had a stake in the game as well.
Yeah, sorry, Alex, about that slide. I'm in
That's
charge
okay.
of the slides now.
No worries.
And I talked about planning and process. Oh my gosh. So continuing on collective impact. So we engaged people from across different sectors. And so that included local governments, social service nonprofits, so not just arts organizations, but human services, our local arts council, small and large businesses, our visitors bureau. Actually, most visitors bureaus should have a very strong interest in projects like this, of course, as most of us probably suspect. Law enforcement was involved. We had to close down some streets for an event, and our Main Street organization, local schools, local artists were involved in the process. And we really kept everyone engaged and included throughout the process in one way or another. So really what began as a 6-member committee known as Putnam County Mural Project really turned into a network of individuals and organizations that felt a shared ownership and definitely shared the success of this story. So, you know, the image here of the ribbon cutting ceremony with different, you know, obviously it's not everybody that we engaged, but we have some business owners, we have our mayor, we have representation from the Visitors Bureau, IHCDA, the Civic League. So again, you know, it was a joint effort, and that's really what collaborative impact is about. And I do want to note that, you know, while every community and every project is going to have different people at the table involved in that process, I think it's really important to make sure that your local government is involved. And having them at the table from the beginning, it really paid dividends throughout our process and our story, especially when we needed for approval for certain things like shutting down the highway that sits right in front of this site to do a massive block party. So, you know, by the time we got that approval, we had the trust, we had them involved, and it was both of our, you know, shared vision and projects. So, and then really keeping those relationships going even after the project ends. And again, using the local government, for example, there are some interesting city codes, at least in our community, that really don't differentiate between signage like billboards and art. And so as we continue to work on mural projects in the future, and as we think about advocacy, arts advocacy and policy, the trust and relationships that are established now are going to be very beneficial down the road. And so, yeah, Alex, I think this is it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So now we get into the most important part of your community arts project, the community engagement part, right? It's why we are all here. It's why we all do this work in the first place. And who better to define this term for us all here at Indiana Arts Homecoming, but the Indiana Arts Commission. They have provided a lovely description of what community engagement means. And they define community engagement as the activity of consistently cultivating two-way community relationships beyond conventional programmatic partnerships. Community partnerships are rooted in programs, activities, and marketing, whereas community engagement is rooted in people and requires long-term commitment. So, the biggest takeaway on what we learned throughout our process in terms of community engagement is to listen and implement. If you're only listening to your community to say you listen to them, you aren't doing the job. Listen and implement what they have asked for. Have trust that your community can and will tell you what they want in their community-based arts project. This requires being vulnerable and really listening hard and actually getting on board with what your community is asking of you. Additionally, start thinking through some of your potential barriers that could pop up along the way in your community. For example, are you using specialized field-specific language to get your community on board? If so, it's probably not going to work as well as you might want it to. Are you going out into your community to get their feedback, or are you asking them to come to you in order to do this? And the last important thought to keep in mind here is use your community engagement as a means to continually cultivate relationships throughout the entirety of your process. Go back to that graph that Chris has put together for us at the beginning of this presentation, where you really looked at the overarching narrative of your story and how you could continually implement exactly what you're wanting to do in your community throughout the whole process. Okay? So here's what we did and how we got started. So we used a multi-pronged approach by continually asking for feedback throughout the entirety of our process. Getting the schools engaged, getting the donors engaged, utilizing a selection committee, having a street festival, and outreach to areas other than just Greencastle, which is the county seat. The image here on the left is from the very beginning of our process. Chris briefly mentioned this earlier, where we first introduced our crazy idea to cover these huge silos with paint. We invited Megan Caruso, there she is standing at the podium, from Sprocket Mural Works in Pennsylvania. And that's an organization that has done many murals similar to this and has hosted mural festivals and all kinds of things. We had her come here to Greencastle and talk with our community about community arts projects and have a discussion on how public art can be a means to build a better story for your community. So not just focusing on murals specifically, but really emphasizing the power of public art. We continue to carry this emphasis on building artistic capacity and the educational aspect of this type of project, the educational aspect that this type of project can provide throughout the entirety of our timeline. We then spent 6 weeks physically going out into the community to ask people what they wanted to see in a mural. We asked people to place stickers on examples of other murals on silos that they preferred. We allowed for people to give us their words describing their Putnam County. And we even had coloring pages so kids, and really anyone, could draw and color and show us what they wanted their mural design to look like as well. When we say we went out in the community, we really mean it here. We went to libraries, farmers markets, First Fridays. We held online platforms. We went to local municipal buildings across the entirety of the county. Again, we're really focusing on Putnam County Mural Project, not just the county seat mural project. It doesn't matter if you're urban or rural. What we found is that you can't expect people to come to you to have that engagement and to really gather that feedback from your community. Instead, go to them and really listen to them. So here we are, the images that you're looking at now. On the left is one of our team members at the farmers market, where people are given the opportunity to place stickers on images of mural examples. So we gathered a whole bunch of images of murals from all across the world, and we put them on big boards, and we asked people to come and take a look at them. So instead of just asking people at a stand saying, what do you want to see on a mural? We gave them examples, visual examples that they could point to and say, I like that, or I don't like that. We didn't ask them to tell us the style that we wanted. We asked them to visually show us which designs they like best. And this provided for a much more inviting process for everyone involved. So many people say all the time when they look at art, and I'm sure we've all heard it before, I'm not qualified to look at art, or I'm not qualified to judge art, or anything like that. Well, here is a way in which we allowed them the opportunity, the agency, the ownership in deciding what kinds of things they want to see in their community on a mural. That's very similar to these that were in front of them. Okay. So we continue to engage different sectors of our community. Again, on the left is another image from First Friday, I believe, where one of our younger community members is showing us which example of style he likes best. And on the right are representatives from the Putnam County Jail. Now, our silos sit directly across the road from the Putnam County Jail. And we wanted to get feedback on our mural content decisions from those who would be looking at it directly every single day. So we went to them. You see there, Chris and another one of our team members, Eric Freeman, they went physically to the Putnam County Jail. They asked for their opinion, and we allowed them to partake in the process of our choosing what style and content we were going to put on the silos.
And these were, of course, the inmates, not just the law enforcement. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. So here's a couple of more examples of our process here and inclusion of our community. On the left is one of our boards that we utilized at farmers markets and First Fridays and in libraries, asking anybody walking up, what's one word to describe your Putnam County mural? We use that so we could provide some inspiration for, one, choosing an artist, and two, giving to whichever artist we ended up choosing for inspiration in designing the mural itself. We then funneled all of that information, so all of the words we gathered, all of the images we gathered, everything, to take to our panel of community members that would then comb through the over 70 applications we received from artists all over the world interested in our project. So you see on the right there, that's actually our team of community members who came together to decide on an artist. So this committee, it was made up of about 17 different community members. They took into account the content and style information the community had been telling us they wanted over the last 6 weeks. And they worked to match an artist style with what we were looking for as a community. So they combed through all 70 of those artist applications that came into us. They combed through all of the information we took from our community, and together they paired an artist with what we were looking for our community project. This committee was a diverse cross-section of our community. It consisted of art teachers, local arts advocates, artists, people that span the generational divide, business leaders in our community. We tried to incorporate as many voices as we possibly could manage in a space like this in order to decide on our artist.
And so, as we mentioned, arts education is also something that we were really interested in. And so, right, what you see here, we had a few different classes from the county. We have 4 county schools in Putnam County. And we had 3 class visits to come on site. And really, it was about seeing the process. They got to learn about projects like this, creative placemaking projects like this, and how they could, as even young artists, do something similar in their neighborhoods. They got to have a Q&A with key detail, as you see on the right. And it was really awesome to see how the students, what kind of questions the students asked. And it was very different than what I would hear from some of the adults. And so even things like, what do you listen to while you're up there, 12 hours a day doing this mural by yourself? And yeah, and so it was really neat. It was interesting to hear, who was interested in pursuing art as a career. And so it was a great opportunity to educate them on not just murals, but public art in general, and the paths that, young artists can take to maybe pursue a career in the arts. And then really we capped everything off once everything was completed with a huge community block party. And so definitely our team was ready to celebrate after, this, months-long planning process that was really condensed into a short amount of time. And so we invited the entire community out for this party, which featured live music, food and drink vendors, face painting for the kids, games, bounce house. And so it was really just a great way to, again, cement what our mission was about using public art to really bring community together. And so in the 2 hours, we shut this street down for 2 hours, and we had over 1,000 people come in that time, and kind of in and out, walking from the neighborhoods and whatnot. So it was a really great experience. You can see on the left here some more vendors. This was also actually a great opportunity to engage the many donors that supported this project and made it happen. And so we actually had Upland Brewery and Mallow Run Winery sponsor our donor appreciation tent. And so that was a great opportunity to thank our donors and to give them, their gift bag. So depending on the level that they gave, we had everything from like stickers to totes with the branding and sponsors on them to our leadership level, which had signed, artist prints, a series of prints that we had that depicted the illustrations that was seen on the mural. And so again, and then to the right, we have the live music. That's Tad Robinson. He's a 9-time Blues Music Award nominee. And he's actually a resident of Greencastle. So it was really good to have him and his blues band perform. His wife is an arts teacher in the community. And so she was actually a part of that mural selection process that Alex mentioned a couple slides ago. And then finally, this is really one of my favorite images of the entire project. And I think it's a real beautiful illustration of what public art can do in your community. So, just looking at this, obviously you have the mural in the background, but I mean, look at all of the activity that's going on. I mean, there's so many different age groups, so many different backgrounds coming together, so many different political perspectives even coming together to be a part of this arts experience. And, you see the people in the back eating right up against the mural, up against the silos. You see the young girl doing some street spray chalk art. And so, yeah, this is really, when you're going about public art in your own community, I think this is really where it hits home and really where the meaning and impact is seen. When you get them involved, when they feel included, and when you're going out to them and listening. And so, yeah, so that is the story of our project. Hopefully you had some good practical takeaways and lessons that we've learned that we're sharing. And so right now we're going to open up for Q&As, and I know that I've been reading the group chat and there's questions. I'll probably start off with this question about how do you determine artist fee? And I know with our project, that was a big question because, like I said, a lot of us who are doing this work, we've never done a mural before. We've been in like the performing arts or museums and whatnot. And so we definitely did a lot of research and investigation on there. And I see Tony linked a site that you can calculate square footage. And so I'll just share what we did and some of the tricky things that come with this. So yeah, there are sites, you can find sites that you calculate the square footage, and I think Kayla even pointed out, like if you're doing like a $25 per square foot, if you're doing an 8,000 square foot project, it comes out to $200,000. And that would be impossible for us to do. Like our project was 60,000. That would be in our Creating Places grant that we pursued, that was limited to 30 days. And so our project timeline didn't really allow us to campaign longer. And to be honest, I mean, $200,000 would have been a lot for our communities to support. So while those are helpful, I think for smaller walls, like maybe a 1-2 story building, I think there's definitely value there. But I think there's also, being realistic about what you can fundraise in your community, because it's, somebody will, I mean, you don't want to undercut what you're giving to the artist. You want to be generous to the artist. And that's what we really wanted to do. But in the different mural, organizations that we talked to when we were brainstorming this project, we kind of heard the same thing. Those are helpful to a degree. So when you get these like really, one-off major mural projects, you have to really take into account what your capacity to fundraise is, what your budget is, and then really just hope that people will apply. So I think we actually paid our artist something like $22,000. 22.5 to do this project. And even when he was here, picked his brain about again, constantly trying to learn, and really I think what you have to you can use those square footages as a guide, but then at a certain point you have to set a price, and you have to set it competitively. So we thought 22.5. We actually went up from our original budget because we wanted to be more competitive. And so the fact that we got over 70 artists from across the world really applying to this showed that it was a competitive and respectable artist fee. And I also want to point out that you also have to think about who's buying the supplies. So some mural projects, the artist does all of the supply orders, and then that's just built into their fee. And so with our project, our timeline was so tight that by the time we selected the artist, we wanted to make sure that we weren't selecting somebody who might take a little too long to order. So we wanted to make sure that stuff was ordered in a timely manner. So Key Detail sent us the supply orders, and then we did that. We ordered that all. And that just was so that we had like a 3-week window between the time we had that contract signed and the time that we had the festival. So you also have to factor that in, because I've seen some square footage estimates that include the paint. And so if you're paying the artist just an artist fee, that's different than an artist fee and the paint that they'll have to purchase. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but there's a lot of different things to consider. And for big projects like these, you have to be thinking about.
Yeah. So
fundraise too.
We've got quite a lot of questions coming in. This is great. Chris, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide so people can get our contact information while we're talking about this, because I want to be cognizant of time, and I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of these questions adequately. But a few that I do want to go ahead and pick up on. So somebody has asked about, a few things. I'm trying to put them together. So upkeep, somebody asked about an art conservation specialist. Did we track everything that we use so that over time we can implement and fix? So to touch very briefly on that topic, there is an easement agreement in place for this mural. And that is typically what happens, especially on murals that are on private property, which this one is. Our easement agreement is for 5 years, I believe, correct? Yes.
Yes, yep.
Is for 5 years. And that means that between now and the end of that 5 years, we will continually do our best to upkeep what is on the mural as best as we can within our budget and confines and resources. And then after that, the property turns back over to the property owner. Or at that point, if the property owner and the city want to work together in order to elongate that agreement or whatever they would like, they can do so. But at the end of it, if the property owner would prefer to cover it up with paint again, he could do so if he really wanted to. The reasoning for that is, well, we thought a lot about this because, and I come from the museum field, so I'm consistently thinking about how do I preserve things for as long as you possibly can. And in terms of murals, part of the magic and power in murals is that they aren't preserved for forever. They do deteriorate over time. They change, they react to their environment. We envision this project and Putnam County Mural Project more so as an emphasis on reacting to our own times. If in 5 years it doesn't make sense to have that mural there, or if that mural is no longer adequately describing our community, we don't want the community to be locked into keeping something that they no longer want or need. And I'm assuming Chris is on the same page here with me.
Well, yeah. Well, I would say, and I think there's also that other, and I know there's stories in the news. I think the one court decision about that, I think New York City, about that graffiti art that was covered up recently, or a while ago, and the decision was made recently. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, let's think about the business. There's no way on year 5 and 1 month that the business owner is going to spend $15,000 to $20,000 to get somebody to paint over this like landmark public art for the community. So I think it's I think many people are there's going to be a backlash if that ever happens. But to Alex's point, you think about the old painted barns and like those mail pouch advertisements that the patina that gets on statues and public art. It's part of the story. It's part of that art communicating over time. So we will keep it painted and fix things in the next 5 years, and it'll last for many years and decades after that, I'm sure. But it will certainly get a nice patina.
Yeah, and that was brought into our budget at the very beginning. We built into our budget a line item for upkeep on the mural. Yeah. And we spoke with the artist very clearly about what paints he recommends, because he's the international muralist. He knows what paint to use. We're all still new to this. So we worked a lot with him on those terms as well.
Kayla asked a good question here that I think is pretty sensitive, and I've seen this brought up in a lot of mural projects. But how did you attract national artists to submit for your project? And then were the local artists that applied, were there local artists that applied, and did the community respond to a non-local artist? And this is kind of a hot button topic, I know. And to answer the first part of that question, we Sprocket Mural Works was really instrumental. Megan out there on the East Coast is a friend of mine, and so they were really good partners through this. And so their platform, they have a lot of followers on their Instagram, and they do a mural fest each year. They've worked with some of the top muralists in the world. And so their platform really helped get that out. And then regionally, again, that marketing and communications plan, getting that name, getting our work out regionally helped as well. IAC was instrumental in putting up the RFQ that we sent out. And then the question of were there local artists that applied? And yes, there were. And we did, at the very beginning, we talked to a lot of our local artists. Mind you, we're a small rural community, so we're not like Indianapolis, where we have a thriving art scene and lots of artists that live there. And so the muralists that did apply and would have been capable of doing a solid job weren't really at the level that could actually get this project done. And that wasn't part of our decision. I'll backtrack a little bit. Our community selected the muralists. So when we had all of those applications in, that committee that we had that one picture of at the conference table, they took all of the quantifiable stuff we got from our community over the 6 weeks of engagement, and then they kind of interpreted that. And then we had a blind, nobody saw the artist names. They just saw images of their prior work, and they were trying to determine what is the community telling us, and what artist's work best meets that. And so really the community and the blind process helped select and narrow down. And then our Putnam County Mural Project Committee, we really started looking at, because we had about 3 that the group chose, and we started to look at resumes and some of the cover letters they sent, because we really wanted somebody. We had to do this within 2 weeks. Our city, we couldn't shut down a lane of a very busy highway for like a month long, and so we needed a professional to do it. So our community selected a few really great artists, and then we're really happy with our decision. And I will say, in the future, and I think this kills another bird with one stone in the question section, in the future, we do want to take a format of a mural festival. And so when we talk about building artist capacity within our mission, we see a lot of value in having, muralists at a festival doing multiple projects at multiple levels of, professionalism. So we didn't do anything this year because of COVID, but in 2021, looking to the fall of 2021, a mini mural festival format where we can get a really, good national, international artist to come in and do a wall, and then have our local muralists and regional muralists. That's a great way to have people network and learn from each other. And that's the approach that we intend to take in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think that answered most of the main questions. I may have missed one or two though along the way. Okay, so Tony's asking, will you be taking suggestions from the public in your partnership for future projects? A location that needs something high traffic area, a design idea to bring attention to a local topic. Yes, so like Chris mentioned, so 2020, we were originally intending on having some kind of mural festival this fall. Of course, that didn't happen. With COVID, we thought it best not to push on any of that. However, we are still hoping to host some kind of mural festival next fall of 2021. And we intend for that mural festival to continue on this idea of community engagement and community buy-in. And it gives options for our local and regional muralists to start to build our murals in the county, as well as still asking for that internationally based request for proposals. Because it is our intention with Putnam County Mural Project that it's not just an emphasis on creating and beautifying spaces in our community, but it's on providing opportunities for education in the arts throughout multiple facets of our community. And that's where we really see this connection between bringing in outside people into our community and working adjacently with people in our community to build the arts together. That's the general idea there. And that of course entails continuing to listen to our community for spaces that are available, for walls that need painted, for ideas and content and style implementations as well. Additionally, we have kept all of the information that we brought in last year for this project. We still have all of it. And we intend to continue to use that because that's all helpful information to move forward with new projects. We have to wrap up. We've got 3 minutes left, but there is one question about your average.
The average, yeah. Zach, that question, I don't have a specific number, so it's going to be kind of an approximation just based on, remembering things. But because we had a lot of individual donations, that probably was in that $25, $50 range. But we also approached affinity groups, so our 100 plus men and 100 plus women who care. And, that obviously is like, well, not obviously, that would probably amount to $100 per head in that. And so I would say, we had a couple leadership gifts from individuals that were over 1,000, and we had a special dinner for them with the artists. But I think it's safe to say when you average it all out and you take away the matching $30,000 match from Creating Places, it would probably be in that $100. It was really about quantity and many people coming together. And so in that respect, that's why diversifying revenue and that's a really good thing to get many people giving a little bit.
And with that, I want us all to, we can't quite applaud in the same way we normally would, but I want to give everybody a thank you and for all your hard work in the presentation and really lovely work on the ground. I hope everybody enjoys. You're getting all sorts of kudos in the chat now. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. For folks, we've got a creative intermission coming up with another tour and then another set of breakout sessions. So enjoy.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.